Hello, welcome to Dorks on Sports, a podcast about four dorks talking about sports. Today, there's only three of us, though. Alana, we'll miss you this week. Joining me, as always, is Curtis. How are you doing over there?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, you look well.
Yeah, I feel well. I got a new Seahawk hoodie.
Oh, that's very nice. It's
Isn't that
got
cool?
a little retro thing going on. If you're listening to the podcast, you can check out Curtis's fancy new hoodie on YouTube, where you can watch our
It's very
video
80s
cast
style.
or pretty faces. Yeah, I like it. No, that looks nice. Millie, how's it going over there?
You know what? It's not going well.
No, tell me about it.
I have become the thing that it's rare for me, but I have become fantasy irrelevant.
Oh my God.
Mm.
Wow.
Irrelevant. Yep. Yeah, it was a sad week. I lost my long time league, and I lost to the commissioner, who I don't think has ever beaten me in a playoff. So, kudos to you, Brandon. You'll never listen to this podcast, but good job, buddy. Good job. Really.
So basically, you're the 2022 Rams.
Yeah, that's
pretty
right.
much. Yeah, I limped in. It's fine. It's fine. Now that Jalen Hurts is probably out this weekend, I was probably going to lose this weekend. Maybe not. Justin Fields is my backup, but he might not be in good shape either. Anyway, and then I did win in the one league, but that's in the losers bracket, so it doesn't.
That is that a win?
That's all that matters. We're relevant.
Yeah. If you're winning in the losers bracket, nobody wins.
Yeah. No.
Fine.
So yeah, you can keep asking me about my fantasy team, but it's just going to be depressing.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, better luck next year. Do you ever do fantasy baseball?
I don't. Devin does fantasy baseball, and I did it years ago. I went back and looked. I think I played for 3 seasons, and I actually won one of them. But it's all about how you set up those leagues. But the ones I did anyway, it just takes a lot more time and effort than fantasy football.
Oh, absolutely.
You just have to change your lineups a lot, and I don't pay enough attention for that.
And it's such a long season.
Yeah, it's a long season.
It's a long season. Yeah, that's true. But hey, all you fantasy baseball nerds out there, keep doing what you're doing.
That's right.
No judgment.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that there was fantasy baseball.
Oh, choose a sport and it's got a fantasy now.
Yeah.
I did fantasy football 1 year back in, I think 2003 or something like that, and I feel like I came in 3rd place with it all, but it was just
it's a different arena.
A, it was too much commitment, and B, it was for me personally and how I view football, I felt like it was sort of taking the fun out of football for me, because I felt because I've always been a diehard Seahawk fan, but I've got this person on the Rams and I've got this person on that. So I just want my team to kick the shit out of the Rams, but then I have to want Torrey Holt to grab 8 catches and 3 touchdowns and all this. So I was just kind of nah, this isn't for me.
I will often bench a player on the opposing team that the Seahawks are going against, just because I want to be able to enjoy the game.
Yeah.
But I also, when fighting for my my playoff life, I did in fact play the 49ers defense this past week, because I'm no fool.
Oh yeah, that's smart. I mean,
I always went the opposite direction. I would play those players because then for me, I came out winning that Sunday. Either the Seahawks won, that's always good, or the other team probably did something well to win, and my fantasy team did well. And then you have those games those mid-10s Seahawks Cardinals games that would end up in an 8-8 tie, and that nobody wins those games.
No, there is no winning.
There's no winning.
You know who didn't win this week? Seahawks versus the 49ers. 49ers end up sweeping the Hawks this year. Oof. That was
First time since 2011 when Tavares Jackson was our quarterback.
Well, hey, listen, didn't the 49ers
So
go to the
this is
Super
what
Bowl that
Russell
year?
Wilson, I was just going to interject. This is what Russell Wilson can now say and hold true.
That's true. That
Every
the
year
Niners
that
never
he has
swept them.
been the quarterback of the Seahawks, they have either swept the 49ers or they've split.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Well, that's you can have that, Russ. 49ers look really good this year. Yeah. I don't know. Especially if Hurts is going to be out for any period of time, or if this is just an injury that he's going to have to play with. Man, I don't know. 49ers might be the team to beat in the NFC.
Yeah, there's something that I think's a little bit maybe the way in which the Minnesota Vikings came back in that game. I sort of feel like I'm not totally bought into that team, but I will say that type of outcome, and that type of finish could be a spark for them.
No, well, I think the Minnesota Vikings are this year's team of destiny, right? Like everything just keeps bouncing their way. Also, we'll get into that. I have a lot to talk about with that. That Minnesota game. I don't want to dwell too much on the game versus the 49ers because I feel like these games are turning into a broken record. It's just the same issues every week, right? What I'd rather do is talk about what we'd like to see from this team finishing out. And do you think this team is going to the playoffs or not? Do you think we're going to, I mean, to get there, I think the Seahawks have to win at least two more games, two of the three. So we have the Chiefs, Jets, and Rams. So I think they have to win at least two of those to have a chance at the playoffs. So Millie, what do you think? Do you think the chances of the Seahawks going to the playoffs this year are sound? And what would you like to see out of them, as we finish the season up?
I don't think it's impossible for them to get a wild card spot, but I think it's pretty unlikely. I think that the Lions and the Giants, I just think there's more hope there than there is for the Hawks. And honestly, I think sadly, to my eyes, those two teams probably have a better chance of getting that random win in a wild card game than we do. But I'm also I'm very aware of my emotional roller coaster as a 12 and as a fan. So right now I'm in that place of we don't even deserve it. We win the next 3 games and I'm like, fuck you, we're winning the Super Bowl.
We're going all the way. Woo!
You jumped off the wagon. We never left it, so you have to take it all with a grain of salt. Right now, I'm in a little bit of a bitter place. I would have liked to have seen us take it last week. I might not have picked it to happen, but I sure would have loved to have seen it. There were just all these little hopeful things. And I know we don't want to dwell on the last game, but we didn't win it. But you give me the next 2, and I'll give you a completely different story on this podcast in 2 weeks, right? But where we are right now, I don't see it. What I want to see out of the team, though, I want to see them fight. I want to see some players maybe that we haven't seen a lot of get a little more opportunity to get some eye test time. And I think that's important going into the offseason to have a feeling for who you might want to keep developing. And as you're, figuring out what you want your team to look like next year, if we're at that point. But I don't think it's time to quite throw in the towel. So I don't want to see us resting players quite yet. I think for me, until you are actually mathematically eliminated, you never stop fighting. And after that, then maybe your focus could be on seeing some stuff, some scenarios, some players. Maybe you throw in Drew Lock and give him the ball. But you don't do that until your chances are over. For me, I'm
Yeah.
going to keep going with Gino. I'm going to put DK out there. I am, if we win this game week after next, if Tyler wants to go play, Tyler goes and plays. Like, I'm going to keep playing my studs until there's a reason not to. And I want to see them, play with as much as they can too. As a fan, that's what I want. As a human being, I understand that there are other factors for players as human beings as well. So, everybody's got to do what they got to do. But as a fan, I want to see it. I want to go as hard as we can. I'd love to see some creative play calling. Just again, it's time to throw things at the wall. It's time to take some chances. That's what I want to see out of the next couple weeks is hard as you can. And if we are mathematically eliminated, then show me something interesting. Keep it fun, keep it competitive.
I agree. Yeah. We still have an outside chance of the playoffs. We're still right in that hunt. And I feel the same way as you, which is like, keep going. Who's to say we can't win the next 3 games? Or even if we lose against the Chiefs, who says we can't get the Jets and the Rams, and maybe something bounces our way with, Detroit and New York. What do you think, Curtis? What do you want to see? And how do you think the season's going to play out, the rest of the season, these last 3 games?
Yeah. I want to see him finish strong. I want to see him take at least 2 out of the next 3 games. Yeah, just 2 out of the next 3. That's my reason. I feel like that's my reasonable ask. I think this game, going into Kansas City, it's going to be about 11 degrees. It's going to be frigid freaking cold. I think that's probably going to affect both offenses a bit, but one team has who I think is by far and away the best quarterback in the league right now. And the other team has a decent quarterback who's, putting up, Pro Bowl numbers, but is down one of his star players and has a gimpy running back right now who we still aren't certain with. He has an offensive line that's a little bit shakier. And a defense that has been pretty erratic at best, and pretty bad at worst. So that said, I think this game this week is going to be tough. Do I think they could possibly win it? Sure. But I'm not expecting it. But I would say, if they play the Chiefs tough, I want to see them beat the Jets. Because I think the Jets are sort of on par with Seattle with where they are. I think they've got a little bit better of a roster, but they got a worse quarterback situation. And then I want to see them take care of business with the Rams at the end. I want to see them get to 9 wins and feel and maybe a shot at the playoffs still. They've got about a 30% chance, I think, right now at the playoffs. 9 games may not be enough, depending upon what the Lions and what the Giants and
fortunately
and the Packers are still suddenly sort of up in the mix of it now too. So who knows if they start to get hot. So there's a lot of up in the air with the playoffs right now. The playoffs to me are almost immaterial. I just want to see them get to 9 wins and make me feel like Jody Allen isn't going to be potentially, looking at the way in which this team could potentially slide to a 1-7 record in the second half of the season after they were 6-3, and thinking that she's got to make, a tough call with the coaches, make it seem like, because it seemed like about a month ago, we were all super excited about what the potential direction of this team was going in, right? Like Carroll looked like he was back in his element. Geno Smith looked like the next franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future. If they lose out, I think all of that is in flux. Like all of that is super fluid. They could, ownership could decide, with the way, the Kraken is coming on and the way the Mariners are coming on and stuff like that. Like, I don't think they want to be in third place in this market. And they might look at the fact that, Seattle has a rare opportunity right now with, a top 5 pick to take a quarterback who could be the face of the franchise, the equivalent of a Matty Beniers or the equivalent of a Julio Cruz, which they might feel the pressure of needing. And then the question becomes, like, do they want to entrust a 72-year-old, defensive minded head coach that wasn't really hot on playing a younger quarterback this last time around and wanted to go with a more seasoned veteran, so there's just a lot of things. I think there's a lot of moving parts with Seattle not playing well in these next 3 games that I would love to avoid.
Yeah.
Because I'm a Pete Carroll fan, and I would love to see Pete Carroll walk away from this gig that he's had here for now 13 years, on his own terms, on a high note, as opposed to an unceremoniously sort of like decline and exit. And then have to also watch maybe potentially Geno Smith playing for the Washington Commanders next year and taking them to the playoffs, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or some other team that, has the pieces in place where a Geno Smith can step in and, and guide them, I mean, so there's a lot. I feel like, I feel like there's a lot at stake for this team in these next 3 games. I potentially see, and maybe I'm a little bit of like the sky is falling, chicken little, but I also sort of feel like, football is very cyclical, and, Carroll has been here for a long time, and at some point he's not going to be the guy anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just kind of, I would love for him to be extended for the next few years and to see him get this program back to a championship level. And I don't know if going 1-7 in this last half of the season is going to be a super big ringing endorsement for the ownership group.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and I think that this team has the talent to, have been, I mean, we still have a shot at it, but a 10-win team.
It could happen.
11-win team.
I feel like if they can hone down the defense, and that they could just get disciplined and understand that teams are going to run at you, stop the freaking run, and if they can just find a little bit more balance and consistency on offense, they should be able to beat the last 2 teams they play. That's what I feel like. I feel like they should be able to take care of business. They got both of them at home. They should beat the Jets and the Rams.
Yeah. And, and this would be we'd be having an entirely different conversation, I think, if, we had been able to take 2 of the games against like Atlanta, New Orleans,
all those close
Vegas.
losses now still feel a little bit bigger. I mean,
they sure do.
Loss against the Raiders feels huge.
It feels pretty huge right now. Yeah. I mean, if we had won that game, we'd be still we'd
be the 7th seed
choosing our
right
own
now.
destiny with the playoffs. Yeah. I agree. I also just want us to finish strong. I don't need us to get into the playoffs. I think if we make it to the playoffs, that's really fun. It's always fun to be in the playoffs, but the team that I see right now isn't competitive. So even going into the playoffs, I kind of feel like it's a one and done, or maybe you get that, magical game, wild card game that you win. I just want to see them finish strong, and I want to see them build on something, have something to build on next season. I want to see Geno get back to what we saw out of Geno in the first half of the season. And I'm not saying Geno's playing bad. I am not one of those bandwagon fans that is like suddenly off the Geno bandwagon. He's just not playing as brilliantly as he did in, the first 2/3, of 3/4 of the season. I think in the last 5 games or something like that, his QBR is around 56, which is a little above average. Which, by the way, if you had said that Geno Smith was going to have a QBR of 56 by the end of this season, I'd go, those are Jimmy Garoppolo numbers. And that's all I really wanted out of Geno Smith was another game managing Jimmy Garoppolo. So the fact we're even talking about this for me is like, let's sign Geno again. But what I saw out of Geno in sort of like the first, 2/3 or 3/4 of the season was a lot more audibling at the line. It seemed like he was really breaking those defenses down, and the plays that he was making was taking what the defenses were giving him. And I'm not seeing too much of that right now. I don't see a lot of audibling at the line. And I see too many forced passes. Geno's always kind of been a gunslinger like that. He's got a lot of confidence in his own accuracy, rightly so. But it means that he'll force a ball into very dangerous windows. And I feel like in the past few games, he's been forcing a few more of those than he normally does. And that's why his interceptions are going up a little bit more. He's still highly accurate, and he's still, like, even though his interception percentage is up, it's not huge by any stretch. It's not like he's throwing a ton of interceptions. His numbers are still good.
He's got like I feel like he's got like the second best passer rating in the league right now. Like overall.
I think you're right. And
right
around the 5th or
Tua.
6th best QBR.
Yeah.
Those are excellent numbers.
I feel like over the last few games they've gotten away from the balance that they had when they were playing the Giants and the Chargers and stuff. Like they were more, and I was listening to Robert Turbin on 710 last week, and he brought up the point that like he feels like Waldron's play calling has really gotten away from a lot of cool things that they did early on by
that's how I feel too.
More under center and mixing in the run more. And when they've gotten into more of the shotgun stuff is where they've gotten more stagnant with, the misdirections and all the sort of fancy stuff that you can do. I mean, when Holmgren was coaching this team and was running that offense, they were primarily a non-shotgun team.
Yeah,
they were all about under center,
6-step drop. Yeah,
and it was play action, and his whole thing was kind of like when you're under center, the defense doesn't know if it's going to be a run or a pass. Chances are they're thinking run, but it could also, and it's sort of, and it's the other thing of like, when the ball is snapped and you have to like go there and then look up, like there's that, it's just taking away the split seconds of, so I kind of feel like, I don't know why they've gotten into so much of the shotgun stuff. I mean, I've heard it explained that there's this whole run pass option sort of stuff that I feel like they kind of are trying to sort of do, but I feel like it's placating more of the pass game than it is the run game, and that is about as antithesis of like Carroll's philosophy as I sort of feel like I've seen it. I mean, I think Carroll's philosophy has flipped over into an upside down world this year on defense too. Like, that's a whole other sort of discussion, but I just don't know. I feel like Geno's maybe pressing more because more is being asked from him, and there's less creativity.
Yeah, and I think Geno is a quarterback who needs balance, and I don't think that's a knock against him. I don't think Geno's Peyton Manning. I don't think Geno's a Tom Brady who can win by slinging it 52 times a game. I think the balance they had earlier in the season where he's throwing 30 passes a game And bringing in the run game was also just like pretty solid. And we need to bring that kind of like, do you think has the offensive line regressed a little bit at least in the run game?
Yeah, it's been, I mean, Austin Blythe has really struggled a lot, and like they're just their defenses are now putting their best interior guy right in that sort of A gap, and they're like really going after the center because they know he's a liability. And Gabe Jackson is they're doing a really weird thing with they're like, because Gabe Jackson's older and they got this younger guy behind him in Phil Haynes, and so they're rotating two players at right guard. And I personally feel like it's a terrible idea because it's kind of like, pick one, because offensive linemen aren't like defensive linemen. Like you need cohesion on the offensive line, and like the guys playing next to each other need to know that guy, sort of thing. And so, yeah, I don't know why they've doing it. They've done stuff like this before in the past. I don't know if this is a Carroll thing or if this is, but it's kind of like, hey, let's kind of.
Yeah. That's one thing I
definitely feel like as we head into the off season that interior offensive line has to be a top
priority. I'd love to see them address the center position in particular, either in free agency or in the draft. We need to upgrade that.
I have a question for the two of you. And so before the season began, we gave our projections on the season. And when things started going really well, we got to redo our projections, and those are no longer valid. But if you go back to what you all thought before the season started, all of you, including Alana, ended up picking the exact same forecast, which was to go 8-9 and possibly still make it into the wild card. That is pretty much a likely scenario, and is what has happened. And what I find interesting, because I felt like your all's expectations were good to high. If we could do that, like I feel like the feeling was, if we could do that, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, this is a building year. We'll see what happens with Gino. Maybe Drew Lock's going to come in. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen with the quarterback situation. But other than that, we thought we were in this kind of middle building year, and that 8-9 would be good. We'd be okay with that. Then we got our hopes up. And now the reality is that where we're landing is where you all felt like would be pretty good. And I'm pointing it out because I think this is the same sentiment that a lot of people have, is that now that we're here and it's going to probably be an 8-9 season, it's like it's this disappointment. And I'm curious, is it because you got your hopes up in the middle of the season, or is it because it sounded like 8-9 would be pretty good, but the reality of 8-9 is not good?
I would say I'm not disappointed. I've been saying all along, we've been playing with house money. And so when this team looked like one of the, better teams in the NFC, that was really fun. So now that it's kind of come back to earth a little bit, I'm a little, okay, yeah. I think I would like to see 9-8. I think 8-9 would be disappointing. If we only won one more game over the past 3 weeks, that would be disappointing to me. And I'll tell you the reason, because when I predicted an 8-9 season, what I was predicting was a little more inconsistency and up and down. So we'd have a couple weeks in a row where we win, and then we'd have like a 3-game losing streak, and then we'd win one and we'd lose one. It would kind of go up and down like that. Or it would be one of those Pete Carroll seasons where the season got better as it went along. So you lose a bunch of games before the bye, and then they get better and better and better. Kind of like what happened last season, right? With the defense, where it was like all of a sudden in the last game, it's a blowout. And we're like, well, if we'd been playing like this all season, we'd be going to the playoffs. What concerns me is a regression and then losing out in a season. That scares me. I don't like seeing
that makes
because
me
now
nervous.
I don't know what the issue is there. That seems to me it's like there's some coaching going on or something, and that makes me nervous, and I don't like it. And we don't usually get it from a Pete Carroll team. We did get it from a Pete Carroll team in that 2010 season, his first season. And then we ended up, sneaking into the playoffs with a losing record and then beating the defending champions. And that was really fun.
But that was all momentum. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I remember limping into that playoff game. It was like, man, we're just giving this one. Like we didn't take it. But it was kind of cool to get that win against New Orleans and then really build on that for 2012. I'm hoping that this season is a little more like that 2010 season where it's just so many young players and Pete Carroll's just trying to get them to buy in. Like that 2010 season, there was a lot of, Earl Thomas freelancing and, Matt Hasselbeck not really right for the scheme. And, Marshawn Lynch kind of like figuring himself out again. There's like a lot of
ground game was terrible too. The offensive line was bad. The defense was not. Yeah, they
had really good pieces.
I actually felt better during the 2011 season when Tavares because Tavares wasn't a very good quarterback, but you could see that defense turning, and it's just like, and they beat like quality teams that you didn't expect them to beat. Like they beat, the Ravens when the Ravens were at the top of their game, and they went in and they beat the Giants when the Giants were at the top of their game, and you're just like, oh shit, we're beating actually like kind of like A+ teams, but then we'd lose to sort of like C teams. But it was sort of like, it kind of felt like it was all forgiven because you could really feel like you could feel the roster coming together. I would just say from my perspective at the start of the season, when I picked 8 and 9, I felt like we would get the 2011 Seahawks where we would get, a good defensive effort. We get pieces of the offense, but Geno Smith would essentially be Tavares Jackson, who would probably be like okay, but not good, not the future. What I didn't anticipate was that we would get a quarterback that has ended up playing at a Pro Bowl level consistently all the way through. Like I didn't see that happening. And so when that happened, and then the defense adjusted for that stretch of 4 games, and they got to, when they got to 6 and 3, it wasn't just like, oh shit, we're going to get to the playoffs. It's just like, oh, wow. They made the turn on defense. They adjusted back to stuff they were doing similarly in the past. And so now it's all going to sort of tie together. And so where I feel like the disappointment, like if we end up where I would feel nervously disappointed at 7 and 10. I would feel slightly squeamishly disappointed at like 8 and 9 because of the way we finished out, losing 4 games out of 5 to teams. 3 out of those 4 losses were to teams that are actually all uniformly pretty bad teams. So and we let them roll on us. I think to put it more succinctly, I think the regression on defense to me is the most disturbing trend. And this is with a defensive minded head coach who I feel like has, this is my guess is what's happening is he he didn't want to like step in and ruffle the feathers of the new coaches as they're trying to sort out this whole new scheme and everything like that. But I feel like that cost us games, right? Like we could have, like when we came out of that stretch of game, that 4-game win streak, like we fell into going back into a scheme that wasn't working in the first half of the season when we adjusted away from that. So the decision to do that, I don't know. To me, I feel like going from 6-3 and being in complete control of your own destiny to falling kind of off the cliff in a 8-9 sort of range feels really lackluster to me.
Yeah.
And in my mind, in my football mind, paints more questions than it does answers as to what they would even do next season with the high draft picks that we presume they would probably use on defense. Like, is schematically, is this, are they just good enough as coaches to really get this team up? And the other thing too, is they're going to be, this year they were playing on a soft schedule ish because they were fourth place. They got the fourth place schedule, which is typically like the easiest thing. Like this is the reason why the NFL is this perfect parity league, is because if you go in last place, you get the easier schedule. Now they're going to be in second place next year because the teams that are behind them, like, the Rams had a shitty year and the Cardinals fell apart. So now like the Cardinals and the Rams are going to be beneficiaries of an easier schedule next year, where the Seahawks are going to presumably be, placed up against other second place teams in the conferences that are going to be tougher. So like, to me, like, just win 9 games and make me feel like you have the fucking answers.
Yeah.
Like
And
that,
I'd like
I think
to
that's what
see,
it is. I just wonder if they have the answers,
And I'd like to see an improvement on that run defense. Just show me some improvement.
Yeah.
That's all.
But yeah, and so to go back to what we were talking about with projections and emotionally how it makes you feel when they are happening, I think what I'm hearing is the thought was with an 8-9 team, it was going to be because offensively we were going to need a lot of work. And instead, the discovery was defensively, we need a ton of work. And the only contrast I would give is that for me coming out at 5-12, I just figured the whole team needed work. So there's a little less of,
at least knowing that there's pieces in place. I will say this is the one thing that I am excited about, is that I don't think the defense needs that much work. I think the defense is pretty solid in the secondary. I don't think they have to worry about that too much. And if they can like really just focus on that defensive line, and maybe
the
another
line in
linebacker.
its coaching.
I think to me, I think it's scheme and probably coaching, because I actually think that they actually have, if they used the defensive tackles in the way in which, they're best suited to be used, I think you would see, a better defensive effort. I don't think they don't have the players on the roster to play to the scheme that I think
that
Clint Hurt wants them to do in that whole 2-gapping stuff, which we won't get into, but like it takes a real different body. They basically they've got 1 Al Woods out of like 6 bodies, right? They need 6, Al Woods.
Yeah. Well,
like,
now Al Woods has an Achilles, so
now he has an Achilles.
Exactly.
Like really, they should if they really wanted to make,
they need to bring in Meebane and Red Bryant.
Yeah. You need, it's that. So in a sense, it is player issues, but I think more in my mind, it's schematic. I feel like there's things in the schemes that they're asking them to do that are unsound based on the talent that they have, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that I find problematic in my mind. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you asking guys, it's like in the acting world, like we're all, the 3 of us are actors, right? Like some of the worst experiences I've ever had was like what is getting cast and taking on a role that I kind of knew like, ooh, this could be a challenge for me. And then I get in the rehearsal process and I'm just like, why the fuck did you cast me in this? Like, like, why are you
I am
asking
not
me
right
to
for
do this
this.
thing that I am incapable of doing? I'm gonna look terrible. You're gonna look terrible. So I can see like the likes of like Quentin Jefferson and Puna Ford and other people on the team that who have been, I think, getting like ragged on a lot by like fans and people on sports radio. And I'm kind of like, they were good players last year.
Yeah.
You just had them doing something different, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I kind of wanted to talk about a few games from this past Sunday. This past Sunday was pretty wild for football. And I just want to talk about a few games. First of all, that Minnesota game was in the biggest comeback in NFL history. Is that what it ended up being?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Listen, I'm not taking anything away from Minnesota. I think they are a charmed team right now, and I think they are talented. They've got some, maybe the best receiver in the game, and they do a lot of stuff really well. But I'm going to be real, Minnesota fans. The reason why that ended up being the greatest comeback in NFL history is because Jeff Saturday is a bad coach. This is why Jeff Saturday should not be head coach of a team. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest. That bothered me when he was announced, and here we are. Also, Matt Ryan being the beneficiary of being on the wrong side of the worst comeback loss in Super Bowl history, right? When Tom Brady and the Patriots took it, and then this one. So
yeah, he's on the receiving end of both of those records.
Oof.
And
Oh,
that's
buddy.
hurt.
That's Matt Ryan. You got enough money. Like, I think it's time to hang up those cleats. I also want to talk about the end of that Patriots game, because that was the dumbest ending of an NFL game. This is not hyperbole. I think that's the dumbest ending of an NFL game I've seen in my 30 whatever years of watching football.
Have you heard the
Jacoby
audio?
said, did he think they were behind, or was he just like, I'm trying to win the game? Has he had a presser?
Here's the thing. If he would say that, at least I would understand that I would go, okay, that makes sense. I have also been an idiot once, but maybe if he does say, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know how he's not on the waiver wire right now. Like, I would think that Bill Belichick would have cut him before he even got on the plane.
That's exactly going to happen. It was just, you should treat yourself to the audio of Scott Zolak's play-by-play or the color commentary on the radio broadcast of that game for the Patriots radio station, because he was just like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Good night. It's just like a guy who's like employed by the Patriots is just like, that's the dumbest freaking thing I've ever seen. I just on a football field.
Also, just like the embarrassment of Mac Jones just getting trucked like that, and like, if I was a Patriots fan, I don't know if I would turn on a game for the rest of the season. I think that'd be it for me for the season. Yeah, I feel bad for you. I feel bad for the Patriots fans. Yeah, that's sad. And then the Cowboys dropping theirs too, which was pretty bad. That was fun.
Well,
Anyway.
go Jags. That's all I have to say about the Cowboys.
Go Jags.
I will say, yeah, I'm a little concerned about Jalen Hurts being hurt, but I think they're just holding him back for a week, because they've already
got it in control.
Gardner Minshew.
They already clinched a playoff spot. The guy has been playing a little hurt, and then he got real hurt. You're gonna hold him out. You're not gonna play him. You're gonna bring him back in a week or two. because you're 13-1. Like,
And Minshew's a good player.
Mitch is,
Yeah.
this would be a nice opportunity, for him to maybe win a game or two. That
Also
that
showcases
offense
stuff for
is
another team
completely
for
loaded.
next season.
What's that?
Also showcases stuff for a job next season if he wants to, be a bridger or get a starting job somewhere.
He'll be a
Yeah.
free agent. Yeah.
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 I like Gardner Minshew. I'm rooting for him.
I've always liked him. Yeah.
Yeah. The Kraken won. Did you know
Hey.
the Kraken won.
Hey,
I know.
real quick though, did you want to do any predictions for
Let's do some
this
predictions.
Oh yeah, we
City
should do
game,
that.
or-
Yeah, let's do some predictions. So Seahawks are going on the road against Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Oof. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I had this one marked as an L. And I'm gonna have to say it's gonna be another L. I don't think it's gonna be close. I don't know. I think here's the other thing though. I do think the Chiefs are a little bit more vulnerable than I had thought. But they still find a way to, even when they're not playing well, they still find a way to win those stupid games. God, I don't know. Their defense isn't as good as the 49ers, and the Hawks can put up points. So they could find themselves in a shootout for a majority of this game. And then I think, Pat Mahomes does what he does and he just kind of like takes over a game. I'm going to say this one ends up being 27-21 Chiefs.
Okay. Curtis?
I found there's a real interesting stat online recently that the teams that have the record of the teams that have played the Houston Texans the following week, like have the record. So they play the Texans, and then the following week, like all these teams, so that like the combined record is like 3-11.
Oh yeah, that was like the Seahawks in 2013.
Yeah, like
everybody who played the Seahawks always
I haven't
lost the
watched
next
a
week.
lick of like Texan football at all, but for some reason, like this team that is like 1-11-1 or something like that
Yeah.
seems to be taking it out on
That team is feisty.
taking him
I
to
watched
the
that
wire
game.
enough where like teams struggle the following week. So that gives me like a glimmer of hope about this. But I feel like while I feel like the Seattle offense can probably put up, some decent points potentially in this one, the weather isn't going to be great for the pass game, I don't think, because it's going to be 11 degrees outside, and so that ball is going to feel like a rock. And I feel like, being in the Midwest and in that part of the region, like the Chief players are probably a little bit more used to what that feels like outside than what the Seahawk players probably feel like. And we're down, like I'm not super confident that, Ken Walker is going to be healthy enough to go. He was held out of practice today. And Carroll indicated about like it's still a pretty touchy sort of situation with his ankle. So I don't even know if he's going to go in this one. And just in terms of like I know the Seahawks defense did a better effort against the 49ers, but the 49ers didn't have Patrick Mahomes. And I just feel like Patrick Mahomes is going to, and I know that like a passing offense is probably going to be an easier thing for Seattle because they have Tariq Woolen, but I feel like the way, and that might feel like that for a while, but I feel like, they do things better than any other offense. The way they set up the screens, the way they do all that sort of stuff. I feel like we're probably going to lose that thing. I would say probably something like 35-24. Yeah. Yeah.
Vegas
Yeah.
also says that the
Yeah.
Seahawks are going to lose by that. Man,
Yeah.
So I've had this as my upset special for some time, regardless of how
love
the
it.
season went. So as much as I absolutely am not necessarily feeling it, I have decided to stick with my early guns on this
Nice.
one. I think we are their trap game. I hate the fact that we are at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. That concerns me.
that sucks.
But they've got nothing left to lose and they have to win the game. And
That's true. This is a kitchen sink game.
yeah,
I didn't
so
consider that. This totally is a kitchen sink
my
game.
only like is Travis Kelce, because it doesn't matter what team it is, what year it is, we just can't stop tight ends if your name is Seahawks. So tragically, Kelce will stub his toe. Okay, I don't want him hurt. He can just stub his toe a little, and we can win this game. And it's going to be a shootout and a high scoring game. So I'm gonna go Hawks 31, Kansas City 27.
Oh, I like it.
Going
Yeah,
on.
that bothered me against San Francisco. George Kittle hasn't done anything all season, and then he
It's
scores
2
2
touchdowns.
TDs. Like, come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on. Yeah, I like it, Millie. I'm on Millie's bandwagon.
Do it.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's really fun until everyone falls off it. It's super fun.
I'm into it.
Christmas miracle. Mark my
get in some
words.
dorking?
Sure.
Yeah. Can I tell you what I've been dorking out about?
Yeah.
I think White Lotus season 2 just concluded a few weeks ago, and it was all over the place, and it's all anybody could ever talk about. And I wasn't really interested in it. It sounded to me like a bunch of rich white people with rich white people problems, and it sounded like a rich soap opera. I'm like, I'm not into that. That kind of stuff doesn't interest me. But then I started reading about it as everybody's talking about it, and then I was like, oh, this actually sounds like a satire of rich people centered around a murder. And that I'm totally into. So I picked it up, and I'm way into it. I've been binging the hell out of it. It's super fun. I know there's some people out there that it's like, why do I want to watch a bunch of rich people being bad and doing bad things? It's satire. It's saying that, yeah, rich people are bad. And just like have fun with it. I think it's super, super fun. It's got some great actors in it. Jennifer Coolidge is amazing. And she's doing some of like the best work I've ever seen her do in this TV show. I think she's absolutely outstanding. And with a character that is at once like super obnoxious, and then also really just kind of tragically heartbreaking. And there's a episode that I just watched where you really like go, I understand you. She's just fabulous.
Did you watch season 1
of White Lotus?
Yeah,
That's what I'm watching right now. Yeah.
Okay.
I've almost finished it. I've got 1 episode left, I think. Yeah. I thought I just think it's really, really well done. And I like all of the actors. And Alexandria Daddario is like, I like her a lot. I've seen her in a number of things. And this is the first one where I was like, damn, Alexandria, you're an actor. Like, you're a real actor. She's doing really, really fantastic work in it. And then Molly Shannon coming out of nowhere, who I just friggin' adore.
Wow.
Yeah, Alexandria Daddario is the couple on the honeymoon. She's the wife of that couple. Yeah,
I believe she got a nomination for an Emmy for that performance.
They're well deserved. I think she's absolutely excellent. Yeah, and Steve Zahn coming out of nowhere too. I was like, dang.
Oh, wow.
And being like actually like really good in it. Yeah.
He's
yeah.
so cringy in this. Yeah.
Is he in season 2?
No, I haven't seen season 2. I
Oh.
believe Jennifer Coolidge's character is the holdover, and everything else is new. But I haven't seen it. This is all just based on the little bit of knowledge I have.
Yeah,
The next one's in
either.
season 2's in Italy, so it's in a different White Lotus resort.
Got it. Yeah. At a different time. I kind of had that feeling that this season was going to end, like it was going to end and the story is done there. But yeah, I'm way into it.
Aubrey Plaza's in it.
Yeah, in season 2.
In season 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big Aubrey Plaza fan.
Yeah, I as well.
Her.
Like cool. Yeah, maybe I'll have to check this one out.
Yeah, I'm having fun. It's super, I don't know. It's just fun.
You could count me in the camp that was kind of like, oh yeah, stupid rich white people. I don't know.
Yeah. But it's really funny. It's satirizing that 1%. It's like, oh yeah, this is rich people. Yeah, they are this awful.
I was like that on that show that everyone was raving about last year about the thing that's about like, you know, Rupert Murdoch and his family and shit like that.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. I think it's the same kind of like satire where it's just, you know, these bad people doing bad things, but the show knows that, and so, you know, that's what it's about. That's the thing. Succession is what Curtis is talking about. Have you seen Succession, Millie?
Based on you all talking about it, I did finish the first season. I started the second season and then I got distracted. It took a long time for me in season 1 to see what the big deal was, and then there was an episode of that was where they went to the retreat. The family goes to the retreat, and that was the episode for me. I was like, oh my God, this is just okay. It's just fascinating and weird and funny and dark, and I guess I'm into it, but not enough that it's holding me like on a binge level. It's there every now and then. I'm like, oh, maybe I should pick that up again, and then I'm going to transfer to Dorking, and then I always pick shows for some reason that I'm not even sure I really want to watch, but I can't quite quit them. One of which being his Dark Materials. I didn't read the books. I don't know jack about this other than what I've seen in the HBO series. I didn't see the movie they made years ago, so I don't have that comparison, nor do I have that knowledge of these worlds that other people have. So there are things about it I really enjoy. And this new season, one of the most interesting things is actually it's these same actors who were children when this thing started, and they're now young adults in real life and in the show. And the Lyra, the lead actress who plays Lyra, has really, like, I don't mean this in a condescending way, she's blossomed into a really interesting actor from being this child actor, and that's cool. And the talking bear is cool. And these worlds are kind of interesting, but now it's like we're talking about angels and the magisterium and multiple worlds and the dust, which is sin. And I'm just like, I kind of want to know where all this is going and how it ends. And I kind of think this is the kind of like pseudo religious writing bullshit that I can't stand.
Yeah.
So I keep watching it though, because I just gotta know, like, where is this going? How is this going to end? So I've been watching that. I just wanted to give a little update on a show that I dorked out on, which was The Peripheral. I don't know, man. Absolutely nothing. I'm gonna tell you now, nothing gets resolved. Nothing makes sense. I still don't understand what a hub is. But visually that show is really, really cool. So if you don't care about the science of the science fiction plot, as far as like time travel goes, it's super cool. If you do care, then pay better attention than I did, because I still don't know what the fuck a hub is. And that's where like real people live, but they're not real people. Seriously. And I have a third one because I feel like at this point it's like a promise that I've made to the 12s, and they don't really care. It's really a promise to myself to watch bad Christmas movies. So we watch one every Tuesday before we record. And this week was, I think it's called I Believe in Santa. It's on Netflix. It just came out last week. We just watched it. And it's about a woman who, divorced, single mother. She meets this great guy, but he fucking loves Christmas. Like, she didn't know that. They've been together for like 9 months. And suddenly, like, he breaks out with the fully decorated house. He's taking time off of work. He's got plans every night that are like Christmas spirit related.
Yeah, I already hate this guy.
And I think to an extent you're kind of supposed to, but at the same time, and I thought of you, Dan, and your humbuggedness this year, which is a totally acceptable way to be.
Thank you.
And my husband's like, yeah, I don't see anything in this movie that represents real life. And he's kidding, because of course I am. I'm gonna decorate this house. I'm gonna get out my stuff. It means something to me. He loves how it feels, but
Yeah,
he's not gonna spend the hours it takes to make this environment, right? But the thing with this guy is it goes further for him, and he still believes in Santa Claus. And it was annoying and dumb, but at the end of the day, the argument within this movie of sort of what does faith mean to you, and how important is it to you what someone else believes in at the end of the day, just because you don't believe in it.
mm-hmm.
And when I got to that, I was like, now this is an interesting movie, and I'd kind of like you to remake this movie into something better. But philosophically, I really enjoyed the question and the ability of people to sort of get over themselves when it comes to respecting someone else's faith. And I felt like that was that, you're in love with someone and you don't quite believe something they believe in. That's okay. They don't quite believe something you believe in.
Yeah.
So unless that is fundamental to your existence in a relationship.
That is my marriage to a T.
There you go.
I married a non-theistic person, and I still believe in a zombie Jesus sort of thing like that.
And that was kind of
I know logic says that I probably shouldn't, but like fuck, I grew up believing it, and I'm carry it to my grave until I'm proved otherwise,
And that was a lovely message within this kind of messy, silly movie that I appreciated. And I think Devin and I liked watching it together. So, as far as a movie you're mostly going to forget, but there's some philosophical ideas that are kind of interesting, especially for this time of year. Give it a try. Netflix.
I like it. There you go. Curtis, what are you dorking out about?
I went and saw Wakanda Forever over the weekend, and I was super impressed by it. I was really kind of I shouldn't say I was surprisingly impressed by it, because I felt like the original Black Panther was a pretty good Marvel film. And I ended up liking this one a lot better. It just, to me, it was kind of like, when I knew that this was in the works, after Chadwick Boseman passed away, I was kind of like, oh, that's going to be really interesting to see how they sort of deal with that. And so from like just a sort of, from a writer's perspective and a performer's perspective, I was just sort of, I went in curious, in a sort of, non-emotional aid attached sort of way. And I really got caught up in the emotion of like the weight of someone passing that like was like revered and by his people and stuff like that. And Boseman was so charismatic in that role.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way he towed the line of having this sort of nobility, but also this swagger to him, is sort of like, I remember being like really like sort of blown away with that. You know, the first time I saw Black Panther, I was just like, wow, this guy is just awesome, right? And so how do they, you know, continue this, you know, storyline? And, you know, as we might expect, the mantle of the Black Panther gets passed on to the next person, you know, and it's equally as stunning. And her own story is deeply human, and relatable, I think, by anybody who's felt like great pain and great loss in the weight of that, you know. And then on this, but that's not even, so that's just like the one sort of that aspect of the film. This whole other aspect of the film is the introduction to Namor, the submarine mariner character, who in the Marvel comics was a mutant, and we know kind of in the MCU they've sort of, because of the whole thing with like, you know, the mutant storylines being owned by this one studio in the MCU, and they sort of haven't really touched on this. This is the first, now that like Marvel Studios owns the rights to like the 20th Century Fox things, they can now bring, you know, the mutant storylines into the thing. But on top of that, there's this whole, you know, indigenous, you know, Central American sort of, you know, storyline and arc with his character that goes back into the times of the conquistadors and all that sort of stuff. And so from, you know, and a little bit from, you know, my own personal perspective, being part Native American and, you know, feeling all that sort of stuff like that, you know, in a slight sort of way, I'm kind of like, yeah, I can kind of feel that representation a little bit. And it was just really interesting how his storyline and the people of Wakanda converge in what ends up being, you know, kind of a war between both of these factions. And it's just kind of like, wow, that's super fucking complex, you know. And to me, like, this film really encaptures, I think, of what is the best stuff that Marvel tends to do, where it just completely, you know, just, you know, skyrockets beyond anything that like DC ever attempts, and the ability to just to show the complexity of dueling sides, to where you don't even think of, like, you know, the good guys being necessarily wholly good, and you don't think the antagonist sort of villains being like wholly bad, right? Like, it's just kind of like, and it goes back to like those first X-File or the X-Men movies, where, you know, the way in which, you know, Magneto is sort of, you know, the way in which you see his perspective on things. And Namor is like, you know, I mean, he's kind of brutal, right? He has this sort of brutal sort of, you know, way in which he's going to carry out his agenda. But you see his perspective, and it's just, to me, I think that's just like, that's great storytelling in a comic book sort of superhero type of, you know, veil that this whole thing is in. It kind of, I think it really kind of encapsulates a lot of the complexities of us as people on a geo sort of level on this planet. So that was the first Marvel film I feel like I've seen in a long time where I immediately felt like I could sit back down and watch it again.
Yeah.
So I know, like, there's a ton of Marvel content out there, and I think many people are probably sort of oversaturated with it all, because they're just cranking them out. But this one, Wakanda Forever, I feel like is going to be like one of my personal favorite ones that, you know, I will probably watch repeatedly.
I like how they embraced the fact that Chadwick Boseman passed, but also the grief that a lot of people felt in his passing.
Mhm.
And didn't take the easy way out of just like, well, we'll just recast Black Panther, but using that reality
Mhm.
and putting it in the movie, I think is
Yeah.
an interesting touch and a really nice way to honor his legacy, because I think he touched a lot of people through that role.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a sad, it was just a sad situation that he's no longer with us. And then the film sort of embraces that, I feel
Yeah.
like.
I think
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if you're listening to this podcast and you like what you hear, you should follow us wherever you're listening to it. Got the Google Plays and the Audibles and the Apples and the Spotify's and wherever else you can find it. And if you can't find it, just let us know and we'll put ourselves on there. And if you're listening to this, you should check out Curtis's blog, 12life.com. He has some good insights on there. You should read it. Tell your friends, check out the YouTube. We got the video cast. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out our podcast and share it around with all your friends. Once again, my name is Daniel. Curtis, Millie, Alana, if you're out there, the rest of the 12s saying goodbye and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Happy holidays.